For Hunter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is directed to the Minister for Police and Emergency Services. Will the Minister update the House on how the government is supporting our communities affected by fires?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I do thank the member for Upper Hunter for his question and his genuine interest in not only the emergency services but ensuring that this state is well prepared in responding to and recovering for those communities that are facing bushfire emergency as we speak. Mr Speaker, we are actually entering uncharted territory when it comes to a disaster, natural disaster in this state. At the moment, with a catastrophic areas in the Hunter Valley, of course, in metropolitan Sydney and the south coast of New South Wales. That category is a new category. It was introduced after the Black Saturday bushfires in Victoria. It's a category that the New South Wales government very, very rarely uses, but it is emotive language for a reason. It is emotive language, and it warns the community that we are indeed entering uncharted territory. What we have, of course, is emergencies from Nowra right up to Nambucca. Mr Speaker, since the beginning of question time, we have seen an extra 2 bushfires start. Mr Speaker, since the beginning of question time, we have seen the number of those bushfires increase to emergency level, go from 8 to 10. So this is a very real emerging disaster which we need to take on and we need to consider as being something that this state may not have ever seen before. And of course, with the gustly winds at the moment, westerly forecasts of 50 to 60 km/h winds, potentially going up to 90 km/h, we see the fact that much fuel for bushfires being brought about by the crippling drought affecting the dryness of this state, adding to the dryness of this state, means that we have the perfect storm when it comes to bushfires. Mr Speaker, there are plenty of peat fire on the ground at the moment. I remind the House that what we've burnt through so far this season, and we haven't even reached summer, what we've burnt through so far this season is actually 3 times the amount that we burnt in the total period of last season. And these are statistics that are indeed meant to alarm us so that the community and indeed members of this parliament are under no illusion of what we're facing. Mr Speaker, so far we have seen the tragic loss of 5 lives, 3 over the course of the most recent operations. More than 30 people have sustained injuries, including firefighters. Just before question time, Mr Speaker, I called 2 of those fire and rescue officers that received life-threatening were involved in a life-threatening accident over the course of the weekend. I'm delighted to report to the House that one of those firefighters is expecting to return home this afternoon potentially. The other is going further scans. I'll be speaking to them again and hopefully they'll be recovering at home very, very soon. Mr Speaker, so far over the course of these particular fires, we've seen 178 homes destroyed thus far, and the Deputy Premier and the Premier, along with the Prime Minister, joined those communities in Port Macquarie, Wauchope and Taree, meeting those people that had lost their homes. I don't think there's anybody, with the exception potentially of the member for Hawkesbury, who knows what it's like to lose a home by fire. And this, the building impact assessment that we will have over the course of the next few days will be considered by Ewan Ferguson and we'll make sure that those lives are considered as soon as possible. The recovery of those lifestyles will be considered as soon as possible. Mr Speaker, right now 1,500 Rural Fire Service volunteers are on the fire line, and we have an extra 1,500 who are able to be deployed at short notice. But as the Premier said, it isn't just the Rural Fire Service that's providing this level of support. I've already mentioned the fact that 200 fire and rescue officers are actually, as part of strike teams, they're being ably supported by the SES, who have provided a lot of operational support, and New South Wales Police are, as usual, providing high levels of support and strategic advice to the Rural Fire Service Commissioner. Mr Speaker, I want to reassure the people of New South Wales that we're doing everything we can as a government and through our agencies. We actually have, despite what you've heard in the media, Mr Speaker, we actually have record funding when it comes to our emergency services in this state. And that is an important message for this government to get out to ensure that people don't try to take political advantage of this current crisis. Mr Speaker, we have, of course, gone to the unprecedented step of declaring a state of emergency. Again, this is not something that governments do every day. In fact, as the Premier, I think, has already indicated, the last time a state of emergency was declared in New South Wales was 2013. And I think that says to the people of New South Wales...
Member for Upper Hunter.
Second extension.
2 minutes is granted.
Mr Speaker, I think that says to the people of New South Wales that they also have to take responsibility, because there is no further level the government can take the community, no further level of danger that the government can take the community. Of course, a state of emergency means that the government can direct agencies to conduct certain functions. The Rural Fire Service Commissioner will hold that delegation on behalf of the Premier and I. He can, of course, evacuate people from property. He has the right to close roads and thoroughfares. He can order the shutdown of essential utilities and services, and he can enter or take possession of both public and private property in the course of the emergency response. The message from a declaration of a state of emergency cannot be clearer. If the Rural Fire Service tells you to do something, do it. No ifs, no buts. There will be no discussion. They are doing that to save lives. Mr Speaker, on Sunday, as the Premier and Deputy Premier have mentioned, we toured a number of those affected by the fires, and amongst the havoc, amongst the horror, amongst the tragedy, we found hope. We found hope from regional communities that have been brought together, who know that this is, as Dorothy McKellar said, the result of living in a sunburnt country. In the plane to Waldhope, Mr Speaker, I met with a number of fireys who had come from Tasmania. And they came up to Tasmania, and as we were congratulating them and thanking them for their support, their very polite, modest response was simply this: we're repaying the favour, because it was our RFS members who went down there earlier this year to assist them as they were facing a very similar level of charity. Mr Speaker, I'm delighted to boast, as I have in the past, the Rural Fire Service has made a very good strategic decision in purchasing the 737, the Mari Bashir, which we had on its first day of operations did 4 deployments, and unfortunately has been doing a number of operations ever since. Mr Speaker, I think that this House needs to come together with our communities to ensure that those communities know that we're behind them and that we'll do everything we can to get them through this current emergency.
Leader of the Opposition.